James Whitaker, Athletic Director here at Columbia International University. I got the privilege of hanging out with Kaylyn DeVaney today, just catching up a little bit as we do our next segment on Sports Ministry All-Stars. Kaylyn's one of our softball players, recently graduated, and super proud of her and her team, but she's been involved in some ministry overseas, and so I'm going to talk to her a little bit about that and let her share a little bit of what she's been able to do over the last year or so. So Kaylyn, just to kick things off, would you just tell us a little bit about you and your background and even how you came to CIU, just briefly?
Yeah, so I just recently graduated and I started my college career at USC Upstate, and about 2.5 years in, I decided, you know what, I think I want something more, and I just started talking to Coach Allen, and I fell in love with just who she was and the program and the vision she had for CIU softball, just the fact that she wanted to use both ministry and softball together and find a way to just bridge that gap and help her team just fall more deeply in love with Jesus was something that I think is super unique. And it was also something that I had previously experienced on some of my trips to the Middle East using softball ministry. And so seeing that vision that she had just made me want to be a part of it even more. That's
awesome. So tell me a little bit about some of the ministry opportunities you've been involved with recently or even in the past.
Yeah.
Using softball. I think that's so cool that you're able to take softball and use that in a cool way to be able to share the gospel and build relationships and that kind of thing. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so I've been to the Middle East 3 different times over the first 3 summers of my undergrad. And in that, we had contacts there that we were able to just go in and basically have softball camps in effort to build relationships with hopes of sharing the gospel. And in cultures that are very relationally driven, that's super important, but also having the way to get softball in and just share that common ground, that common passion and thing that we all love and are passionate about was very, very cool. Just to have that give us the gateway to then ask them about who they were, ask them about their lives, and then share about who we were in return. And it's hard to not share about who I am without sharing about who Jesus is in my life. And so that was a really cool way for me to just, in some really laid back ways, just be like, hey, this is who I am and this is who Jesus is to me. And he's absolutely changed my life and just who that is. And so I love the way that softball is a common ground for us, but it's not all that we are. And it just doesn't stop there. It continues going.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're obviously really passionate about it. As I've talked to you in the past about this, and even just now as we're talking, I can see you're really excited about that. And so you touched on this a little bit already, but what is it about softball ministry that kind of gets you excited? What do you love so much about it? And
I think I love softball because it's a sport and it's been a big part of my life for a lot of years. And so the fact that softball and Jesus are probably 2 of the most important things in my life, being able to use them together and just learn what that looks like and experience that is super powerful, because I think a lot of times, like, we love Jesus and we love softball, but it's hard to sometimes figure out what does that look like to be able to do those together and use those together. And so being able to just go to the Middle East and experience that firsthand and just be like, I'm so much more than an athlete. I'm so much more than a follower of Christ. But when these 2 things come together, it's just really powerful and really transcending to see the impact that that's able to have.
That's awesome. So tell me about how has this had an impact on your own life? I'll ask you in a minute about maybe a story or 2 of how it's had an impact on others, but tell me about how that's impacted you.
Well, I probably wouldn't have ended up at CIU if it hadn't been for those first couple summers and just the life transformation that happened for me on those trips. It really made me realize that it was okay to be fully worshiping Jesus while I was on the softball field. I guess I'd never realized that those things could happen together. And so I think the personal impact that it had was it taught me the power of community, because the people that I went on the trip with, those women are mentors and great just friends and people in my life who have had tremendous impacts on me and my growth and my spiritual walk. But it's also made me desire to empower and just encourage other people my age to fall in love with Jesus and their sport in the same way, and just help them see that it can be the same thing. And I think Coach Allen does a great job of that. And that's something that I hope that I can also be, just help those girls see that, because I think it directly relates and changes the way that you play the game. And I can definitely say that this year I had a lot more fun and just enjoyed playing the game because I didn't really care about the results. All I cared about was the fact that it was an act of worship and enjoying the game. And I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I love that answer. That, you know, a lot of times we try to separate our sport and our walk with Christ, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can pursue excellence and win and compete at the top level, but also at the same time, you can, like you say, view it as an experience of worship, and that should drive us to be better, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. Talk to me about the impact of your softball ministry, maybe a story or two, or just how you've been able to use that softball, those camps and things like that, to build bridges and to connect with people and even share the gospel.
Yeah, so last summer I actually got to spend 2 months in the Middle East, and I think what was super cool about that was it gave me the opportunity to do life with them in a different way. And so I was training to go play in a tournament with this team. And as part of that, I got to experience and enter into their culture and do some cultural things that were unique to them. And so I would take part in some of their religious ceremonies just to experience it with them and show, hey, I care about you and I want to learn about you. And in return, because they were so shocked that I would care enough to just sit there and like take it in, they would then be like, so what does this mean for you? Like, how can you sit here and do this or just listen and not feel like you're abandoning your own religion? And that was a really cool opportunity for me to say, it's not about the religion, it's about the relationship. And in the same way that Jesus loves all the people that he did ministry with, like, I want to love you guys and I want to just show you that I care about you. And maybe we don't believe the same thing right now, but that doesn't change the love I had for you. And I found that was really hard for them to accept. And it was shocking in some ways because they were like, wow, that's so different, but that's so cool. That happened like one of the first couple of weeks that I was there. And so I had the rest of the trip, this remaining 6 weeks, to just totally dive into that and unpack that with them. And I can just say that was really cool. Like, we'd have game days where we just sit around and talk. And I mean, you start talking about life and who you are, and it just really opens the door to be like, hey, this is who Jesus is, and this is why he's changed my life. And that was really, really cool.
That is awesome. So do you have any trips planned, or you have anything planned coming up? If the pandemic slows down, what's the next steps for you in this area?
This summer, I think I'm taking a break. I just recently graduated, just trying to figure out some of the next steps, but I'm definitely looking forward to see what's kind of next on the horizon, what opportunities are going to open up. I think next summer I will probably look into trying to play with that club team again, just to continue to go back and build those relationships and dive into that. So I think that's kind of where I'm at, just waiting it out, but also looking forward and continuing to, we can connect. We live in a very social world. And so being able to just text with them, I'm taking advantage of that as well. That's
great. I hear you might be helping out with our team a little bit next year. That's awesome. I think you'll do a great job of that.
Thank you.
Any recommendations that you'd have for others maybe considering being involved in sports ministry, connecting their sport with their relationship with Christ? Any recommendations you might have for someone considering getting involved with that?
Yeah. I think for one, you have to just take a step back and realize that, I think for me, it all changed when I realized that I could worship God while playing my sport. And when I really came to understand that, nothing else seemed to matter for me when I put on my cleats, when I stepped on the field. There was just a freedom and an enjoyment. So I would just really encourage them to explore that and just ask questions and be like, so what does it look like to worship God while I'm playing my sport? Because I think once you have a proper understanding of that, your enjoyment and passion and love for the game only grows. And then I think it just opens the door to even more opportunities to explore what that looks like to do ministry and play your sport. That is awesome.
Well, Kaylyn, we're super proud of you. I know softball season was cut short your senior year, but just to hear your heart for softball and worshiping God through that's awesome. It's such an encouragement to me. So anyway, proud of you. Hopefully see you around a lot in the coming days, and stay safe, and we'll catch up with you later, okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Kaylyn. Have a great day.